What's up, people? Here we are again, Casa, SMZ Comics,
Teresa, SMZ Comics. Welcome back.
and we are talking about The Sandman, episode number 4. I don't know if it's called Journey to Hell or
I
something.
think it was Journey to Hell. I don't
It
remember. I
sounds
don't want
like
to
a
say the wrong thing.
sounds like a rock song. So yeah, in this episode, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. All the episodes are already out for the season, so if you've already binge watched it, that's great. If you haven't watched it and you're just checking us out, remember this isn't going to be some grand Easter egg deciphering,
Yeah.
breaking down the episode. It's
We're kind of
just
far behind, so.
yeah, it's just us two talking about the episode when we think about it. So if you want to listen, listen. If not, it's all good. So let's get into this episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off in this episode of going to hell with John, right? So in the
Yeah.
end of episode 3, John is kind of staggering off in the streets. He almost gets hit by a car, and the lady who almost hits him decides that, hey, do you need a ride?
Yeah.
Because he looked like he was lost or maybe something's wrong, and she was being concerned. So we find out her name is Rosemary, and so Rosemary is pretty much going to take John home,
Or where he wanted to go.
where he wanted to go. So in this case here on this journey that she's taking him, he's continuing to talk more,
Yeah.
and the more he talks,
The more concerning it gets.
yes, because then he starts talking about, I think, being in a crazy house.
He had mentioned he hasn't been outside in like 30 years, and so she was asking why.
And so then my brain is trying to think. He talked about murdering people.
Yeah, he said he talks about all the bad things he's done, murdering people, and that's when she's like, "Oh crap."
Yeah, so then she starts getting concerned. She tries to use her GPS phone,
Yeah.
but
She
she
tries to
can't.
call 911, but for some reason, I think she ends up not dialing 911.
Yeah, because the phone dropped, and she didn't want to alarm him.
Yeah.
So then she decides, I'm going to stop for gas. Then he gas, even though the gas thing wasn't there.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole time, John also is telling her, or he asked her about lies, and he's telling her she's
About
a,
if she's a mother, has
yeah.
kids.
So we found more information about her, but he thinks that she's like a good person, and she's not like the other people. And so then once they get to the gas station, I think John's looking for something to drink,
Yeah.
and
No, she tells him that the debit card thing's not working, so she has to go inside to pay for gas. So then she asks him, "Would you like something to drink?" Just to be nice. And so, that's when he goes like, "I don't know what they have out,
yes,
so I'm gonna go in there with you."
she was trying to leave him outside.
Yeah.
So while they're in there, she is letting the, I guess, clerk or
Clerk.
attendant
Yeah.
know that she needs help. Please call the police. And so he gets on the phone to call the police.
Yes.
At this time, John's amulet begins to open because it senses something.
Yeah.
And then at that
Well,
moment,
I'm like, John also hears the clerk calling 911 because he was.
but I actually don't think he heard him.
Really?
I think he wasn't paying attention. They show the eye open up, the amulet.
Okay.
The eye opens up. When that happens, he knows there's something. It's like, oh, okay, if something's going on, let me be more alert. And I
You
think
have to admit, the clerk was talking very loudly for
he
someone
was,
who's
but
trying
I
to-
feel like John was so mesmerized by all the different drinks
is
that he
true, yeah.
probably. I mean, imagine you haven't been out in the world for a long time, and you're like looking like, oh, like
What's this? What's that?
when you go to the
Even the Coca-Cola logo looks different.
so you,
7 Up
know,
logo.
you know how you travel and you go to like the 7-Eleven or liquor store that's not around. You see all
Oh
the
yeah, I
different,
go crazy. I go down all the aisles.
yeah, so you're not paying attention to a lot of things. And I think that's what happened. What they did pay attention to is that the eye opened up, and so then it made him go, okay, let me get it, back to my senses.
Because
what's going on.
he's told his mom that I've seen what that does. So he probably knew like, oh, something's about to happen.
Yeah. So in this case here, he got more concerned, I think, for Rosemary than he did for himself. And I think that's
That
what
makes
really is
sense.
going on.
Okay.
So he thought something was about to happen to her, and so that's why he went over there to go say, "Hey, we should leave because I'm feeling some kind of presence that's not good." And so, of course, Rosemary didn't want to leave because she's trying to get saved. And of course, the guy who's really trying to be a helpful person, but he ends up pulling a gun out,
Yeah.
and so that's where all the drama happens. And then he ends up—we don't see it, but he ends up probably trying to shoot John, and then
Yeah.
Rosemary gets to see the actual power of what's really going on. So for her, I think it becomes real, but at the same time, this is something that's beyond the norm.
Yeah, because whenever that thing activates, the person's ripped to shreds.
Yeah, so for her, and I'm assuming there are superpowered people in this world already. That's my assumption. But at the same time, to see something like that in person, you know this is the next level type of stuff.
Yeah.
So this isn't some ordinary crazy person or criminal. This is something that may be beyond your own scope. So they get back in and they're going their journey, and Rosemary's concerned about her safety. But then John's kind of being more real with her. You ain't got to worry about nothing as long as you get me to
Where I need to go.
wanting to
yeah.
go, which is the ruby, which we find out he wasn't trying to go home. He was trying to go to his storage unit because that's where the ruby is at. So she says, okay, I'll continue with you on this journey. And this is not in order of the actual episode.
Yeah.
We're just going with the journey of Rosemary and John. So by this time here, Rosemary and John gets to the actual unit. John goes into the unit to go get his, and this is from his perspective. He goes in to get his ruby. He gets his ruby, and he comes back out. At this time, he's surprised that Rosemary was actually
Still there.
Still
yeah.
there.
She didn't leave yet.
and so then he's telling her that, oh, how come you didn't leave? And she's like, well, it sounds weird, but do you need a ride? And so she's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, yeah, you're on this journey, but it's at the same time, I think she's kind of maybe scared, but she's amazed at the same time. And so this is something that for some people that your life is so normal that when something like this comes, you might not want to let that go just yet. And so he told her that she's a great person, stay that way. And he gave her the amulet of protection.
Now that he has the ruby, yeah.
Now that his ruby. So I think that that's where they split ways, or did he continue going with her?
No, he got back in the car.
So he got in the
Yeah,
car.
Yeah.
So basically, we're seeing their journey, which in a way is a possibility. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but it would be kind of cool if Rosemary becomes his conscious, because he doesn't have his mom anymore. And I feel like his mom was his conscious. And so he even told Rosemary, I can no longer hurt you. So therefore, basically, by her being with them, she can be as conscious without fear of being hurt by him.
That's true. Especially now that she also has the amulet.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I think may happen. And maybe she may, I don't know about her kids, and she's going to go back with her kids.
Yeah, she has 2 daughters.
But I think that she may see that she may be the only thing stopping him from what he's doing. So it may be her job to stay with him to help guide him in the right direction. Because then once again, we talk about mothers and children. And in a way, he's like a naive child out there. And maybe she's noticed this. And she's a mother. She's going into protection or help mode. And so maybe she'll stick around to help him out and be that voice of reasoning.
Well, I also saw it as her continuing his journey because she picked him up because he looked so lost out in the street. So she brought him to where he needed to go, but then now it's not exactly a house. It's not like he's going to stay there. So it's kind of like, well, where do you need to go to next so I can drop you off?
But do you think that that's going to like a partnership that they're developing, or you think it's just that's going to be it?
It could be. I think it might be it, though.
Okay, so we're going to compare this to the other journey, and we'll see at the end of that one.
Okay.
So the other journey, and we'll get into it now, is going to be between Morpheus and Matthew.
Matthew.
M&M. I just thought about that. So we find out that at the end of episode 3, when we saw the sand go around them, the sand can be used for transportation. Kind of reminds me of the Nimbus Cloud from Dragon Ball or Monkey King.
Yeah.
And so now he is in hell with Matthew, and they're on their way to go find Lucifer. We find Lucifer Morningstar. So they followed the people of the damned, or whatever it's called, and we've noticed that they're carrying their own fire.
Yeah.
Which is weird because Matthew states that it's really cold there. He thought it'd be hot. So in that hell's not hot, but the people who are punished carry their own heat on them.
Yeah.
So we find it
Their
out really
sins.
quick. Their sins, yeah. So they're carrying their sins. Yeah, that's right, carrying the sins. And so then after that, they head towards the gate, and they end up at the gate with these really creepy people.
It's
stuck in
like
there.
people embedded into the rock wall kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
And so one of them hands
him
the
what do you call
gong.
the thing to hit the gong with. Yeah.
And so Matthew's like, why can't we just go inside? And then he's telling him it'd be rude to go inside. Plus, he's not as powerful as he used to be. You need to be invited in.
You don't enter someone's house without permission, essentially.
And he had let us know that before he was invited there before, so he's been there before. So in this case here, introduced to Kratos, God of War.
Squatter Blot.
Squatter Bloat. He
Oh yeah, Squatter Blot.
looked like Kratos, but it wasn't him. But it'd be a good guy to play that character, because he really looked like. Unless it's really just computer graphics. But so he's really disrespectful towards Morpheus. It's like you're insignificant, you're nobody.
Like, who are you?
And so Morpheus has to do like a bluff. It's like, do you know who I am? Like, I'm like this powerful, even though he's not. You need to
Yeah.
give me what I want. And so the bluff works, and then so he says, okay, I'll take you to Lucifer. So they're on their way to go travel to Lucifer. I think that Squatter Bloat disappears.
Yeah, at one point, yeah.
And then so Matthew wants to figure out where they are, but he's like, I'm not going to the top because these trees are like moving and alive.
There's people.
There's people
in
like
the trees.
there's
Yeah.
like people in the trees. So it's like this weird stuff. So eventually they end up to Lucifer, and before they end up there, I was kind of like, oh, it's going to be a girl. It's going to be a girl.
Yeah, you have mentioned that. Yeah.
Which kind of goes back to this whole thing of popularity stuff of same sex things like this. So it's
Because most Lucifers are male that we've seen.
And so since they've already did the gender switch with Constantine, even though the character Joanna does exist, that I kind of figured they would do that with this one. So we get to Lucifer, aka Joanna Tarth.
Before we get to her, we run into Nada.
We run to Nada. Nada there's a people in these towers that look like jail cells, and that could be their own personal hell room, is what it could be. And so we find out that Nada knows Morpheus, and they've known each other for a long time, and that Morpheus even loved her at one point in time, but he's like, I'm not going to forgive you.
Yeah.
And she said she was like he explains afterwards to Walter that these were the first people.
Matthew.
Well, I say Walter. So he explained to Matthew the Raven that these were the first people. And so if you think about the first people of the world, just the things that they go through, like, discovering a fire or light and stuff like that. It reminded me of this book called The Light People, who were like the first people supposedly on Earth, and how they had to deal with the different gods. And technically he's some type of god, so they had to deal with him.
Yeah.
How much he had in play with man, I'm not sure. And it's weird that he would be that much into it to be falling in love with a human. But we kind of saw that before with Constantine. It seems like he kind of liked her, but he is not very emotional or connected to humans at this moment in time. And even I think Constantine tries to kind of connect, when she said for her friend, show some sympathy for my friend, or
Some
empathy,
compassion, yeah.
and he didn't really have it, but he tried. So maybe this is an explanation for why he doesn't have that for man anymore, because of this woman. And so
Why they always gotta make a woman be the evil person?
well, I guess, or we could think of it like Adam and Eve.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so I don't know how this plays into it. They didn't really get into it.
Yeah.
So we finally get to see.
But they did show that Nada sees him in a different way.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like the Morpheus that we've been seeing this whole time.
Yeah, so which is trippy because I say it because I say it because in that case she sees him as a black person
With dreads.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, ethnic black. I don't know what you want to call it. And it's trippy because you're going back and forth between a black face and a white face. So going past that, we get to, as I said, Game of Thrones, Tarth. That's the lady who plays
Oh, Lucifer.
Well, that's her character from Game of Thrones, or as a Captain Phantasm from Star Wars. So yeah, that's all I see. So here we are with Lucifer, who is dressed like an angel.
She is, yeah.
But of course the wings aren't angel wings; they're demon wings. There's another girl in the corner; half her face is jacked up. I think Masakine, which is weird because I know that name from something else, Masakine. And it's not from that. I don't know if it's maybe from Constantine something, but it's another character who is a beautiful girl, but her face is jacked up too. So I'm thinking maybe it might be another DC thing I was watching, because just now I thought about that. I remember Masakine, or it could be from Lucifer. Maybe it's from Lucifer, the TV show Lucifer. I don't know if you ever watched that, where basically
I've never watched it.
he comes to Earth and he's working with this cop. That's what maybe he's working with this cop, and it may be a girl that she is the girl maybe from Mission Impossible 2, but her name is Masakine, and she's working in the bar. When you see her in the mirror, she has a messed up face. So this character, Masakine, is really probably a biblical type of character, and is not something that's actually made for DC.
Okay.
So that's why I think the name sounds familiar. So she's sitting in the corner. She's not really saying anything. Morpheus walks in. They do their greetings. It's more of, what are you doing here? Blah, blah.
Yeah.
and Morpheus is bluffing about his power. She's like, I know you ain't got power. And he's like, basically, my son still has power, but he tells her, I'm looking for
My helm.
my helm. So where's my helm at?
One of your demons has my helm.
Yeah, so she summons all her demons, right? And she's like, making him feel stupid. Why don't you go out there and ask which one has your
Her
helm?
show of power.
Yes. And he's like, I'm vengeance. I don't have to go out there. I have my sand, and it'll find it for me. So now, not only does the sand transport him, we know that the sand can transport others.
Yes.
Because it transports the demon to them, and then the demon comes and he's kind of like, why am I here? Kind
He's
of
actually
thing.
holding the helm.
Yeah. So
Not
I'm
red-handed.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's doing with it because he's not wearing it, which is weird. So then why does he?
Yeah, what does he want with it?
Yeah. So maybe they'll explain it. So in this case here, he wants the helm back. Of course, the demon doesn't want to give the helm back. And then we see that he's like, well, let's fight. I'll challenge you. Okay. So in this case here, in the challenge, before we tell you what happened, what did you think was going to happen in the challenge?
The challenge? I thought it was going to be a great, epic gladiator type fight. Like, I was like, last episode, they showed, Constantine against that demon, speaking all that Latin. I was like, there's going to be like a physical fight this time.
And have you seen the actor who plays the Sandman? Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was going to be, I thought he was going to surprise me.
Well, see, I would expect if you saw Game of Thrones and even Star Wars when they introduce her, then I can expect that she's very physical and she has a very physical stature because she's really tall, and so watching her in other movies, I would expect her character to do something physical.
Yeah.
So that's where my brain was also at. I don't expect him to do anything physical because he don't look like the physical
I figured
person.
he was going to get his ass whooped.
I mean, look at the first episode when they stripped him. He was like super skinny, ribs and everything. Like he was frail.
He sat there butt naked the whole time.
Yeah, and he looked sickly the whole time, like something's wrong with him. So I didn't expect that exactly. I kind of wished it, but I knew it wasn't. So from there, they go into what I call the Wizard's Battle, which reminded me of the Sword and Sorcerer from the Sword and Stone, Disney Sword and the Stone, the old cartoon. It reminded me when the witch and Merlin were battling. But I think you had your own interpretation of that whole.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I watched the duel, all I could think about was my son and my godson, them playing with Legos on FaceTime, and they're like, "Oh, my character does this to you," and then the other person would be like, "Ah," and scream in pain, and then go like, "Well, my character does this to you," and it's like,
So
that's how it was.
using imagination, but I mean,
Yes.
in reality of our world, a lot of people Magic cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or other different card games or even Dungeons and Dragons role-playing games do imagination, and so a lot of the stuff that happens says, well, this happens to your character, this many points go off of it. So in a way, they were kind of playing into the whole, role-playing Magic cards, RP.
It made me think of Final Fantasy because it's like, okay, I have one turn.
Yeah.
Now you have one turn.
Yeah,
So
you
it
have
made
turn.
me think
Yeah,
of that
yeah.
as
So like
well,
the
too.
RPGs.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that's kind of Dungeons and Dragons, the board games. A lot of the games, video games, start off copying those and imitating that, and that's what it reminded me of. It was weak to me, but it was like okay. And in the
It was
end,
Battle of the Wits.
well, in the end, Morpheus does not come out on his own. It's Matthew
yeah.
who has to like let him like, no, dude, like you
Come on,
are the
yeah.
stuff. Like, I was gonna say you the shit, but it's like you have to pump him up. Always
His
have
hype man.
yeah, always have a black person in your corner. I mean, a black bird in your corner. And so then he pumped him up and was like, okay, you can do this. And so then from that point, he ends up beating Lucifer. So I think Lucifer at that point in time goes, well, why should I just let you leave? Type of thing instead of like, because she's kind of sore.
She's pissed, yeah.
Yeah.
She was embarrassed in front of all her demons. What do you
But
expect?
it was something I think last time you had asked when we recorded this was you had asked about how come Lucifer was fighting. I think you asked that.
Oh, yeah, I did. I said, how come the demon could pick who he wanted to represent him, and then he picks Lucifer?
Yeah, and you were kind of like, why would she do that?
Why would she represent him? It's like, why would I represent one of my minions?
But I think in that case, for who she was fighting, it was more of, oh, here's my chance to show you my stuff, and I'm more powerful than you. I never
I'm a
had this
god, you're a
chance.
god,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, it'd be rude and disrespectful just to start attacking this guy. Because remember, she thought that he was gonna come and join her side, And
Oh,
then
yeah.
she got upset and she's like, well, fuck all you and your brothers and sisters, you know? And so at the end of that's what she lets him know that, you know, next time I'm just going to jack you up. Like, you know, don't think you can come into my place and do what you did.
Yeah.
So he gets the helm and then he puts it on and ooh, ah, and didn't do anything
It still
spectacular.
looks like a very weird
Yeah.
helmet thing.
Like I said, it reminded me of
The plague
the plague
doctors?
doctors.
Yeah.
So he sees the ruby in this distance with his mask, and he uses his sand to travel to go
To where the ruby
where the
is,
ruby
yeah.
is. And so he gets to the ruby, and previously in episode 3, which I'm not sure if we had talked about, John had talked about he altered the ruby. How
Yeah.
he did this, what he does with, what makes him so special that he can do this, I don't know.
That a mere mortal can alter a trinket
A trinket.
of a god.
Yeah. So Morpheus finds the ruby. He starts to smile, but he realizes something's wrong. And when he does, it's a little too late. He gets like this backlash, back wave, and
Yeah.
knocks him out along with Matthew. That's why at this point in time from the first story we talked about, that's when John walks in there, but he doesn't even notice those two are down on the floor.
Yeah.
And so once he leaves, then I think
Matthew
Matthew wakes
first.
up, but not Morpheus. And I'm pretty sure that's the end of that episode.
Because then it shows back to John and Rosemary
John-
and their conversation.
In their conversation. But what I did notice is that in the first story, you had two people in their journey. These two people just met. They're on the journey and they continue it. In this case here, in a way, Matthew just met Morpheus in in the episode before that. So this is their first journey together.
Yeah.
So they're on their journey, and Matthew was like there for Morpheus, like his conscious, his reality, his humbleness, his everything else that's not there. That's what this bird is for. Reminds me of Rosemary. That's why I'm kind of wondering if she's going to continue in this journey because Morpheus has his partner.
His ride or die.
Yeah, and in most of these, like the Marvel way, they like to have the same exact opposite.
Well, I'm like, it works in a lot of superhero things. It's a sidekick.
It's a sidekick. So in this case here, John may have his sidekick, and since why would you get rid of like he gives her the power, so we're not going to see this anymore.
Yeah.
So in the way it kind of now he has his sidekick, and she can journey with him, and I'm hoping she journeys with him throughout this journey.
Well, if she does journey with him, she has that to protect her.
Yes,
So
and
even though she's just a regular person, like constantly.
and I find it'll be very interesting because she doesn't seem like she's a very physical person. That she's not your typical heroine.
Yeah.
So this would be interesting. Just like Matthew is not your typical hero. You know, he is a bird. I know there's some birds out there that are heroes with their companions, but in this case here is he's limited to what he can do, and he seems to be there especially for motivation, as you saw before. So this is interesting that this episode to me was about traveling. It was about partners. It was about trusting one another at some point in time. So that's what I saw in this episode. That to me, the main focus was on Morpheus and Matthew's journey, as long with Rosemary and John's journey. Lucifer was just a means to the ends and didn't really matter in that
Yeah.
case. But if you looked at her, she has her own partner too, which is Mazikeen.
yeah.
So we didn't see them do much, but still duels. Those duels, duel and duel.
Yeah.
So in that case, it was very interesting. It was not to me as good as the episode before that, but it is a story I feel like that advances the main goal to get to all his stuff. It advances a story.
It advances John's character. You
Yeah,
know a little
advances-
bit more about him.
You know a little bit more about him. You know a little bit more about Morpheus because with Nada, so we learned a little bit about him.
Yeah.
We learned about his relationship with Lucifer. So we did learn a lot more about him in general. So hopefully next episode we learn a little bit more. At some point in time, do you think that ever is going to have any action?
Maybe. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm like, he doesn't have the build of a warrior, but I'm like, I guess he's Sandman. He has his little trinkets and his tools, as they call it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he could just be like Gaara the Sand from Naruto, then he could use his sand to fight.
Yeah, he should be able to just pull up a bunch of sand, or like it seemed like the sand was endless in his pouch. So
Yeah, or be
can't
like,
he build like some creature, a golem of some sort? With
or
the
be
sand?
like, was that Sandman Marvel? Was that his name? Spider-Man's rival?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something, anything
Yeah.
with sand, whatever. But I kind of doubt it's gonna get
He
very
doesn't
physical.
have to have a physical fight. He could have a fight with his power.
Well, I'm hoping that Constantine will come back into the episodes,
I'm
and
hoping a lot of characters come back.
and
Like even
maybe,
Lucifer,
well, maybe we'll also see some of his siblings. That's what we haven't seen yet. We know he has siblings,
Destiny,
Despair, and something
Death.
else. Yeah, maybe
Death
Death.
was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we do that. So other than that, that's the end for this episode. Unless you got anything else to add to this one.
No.
Nope. All right. So join us for our next episode, episode 5 of the Sandman. Please leave us comments, follow, like,
Lights.
hit
Ring
the
that
bell.
bell.
Yes. Also
And
follow us on.
Instagram, SMZ Comics, and we also have Whatnot Sales. Oh, SMZ Comics. All right. See you guys next time.